Arch Manning is set for his first start of the 2025 season, but talk of the 2026 NFL draft is already heating up. Katie Caldwell, Jeff Lloyd here with you today. So, Jeff, Archie Manning said earlier this month that his grandson, the son of Cooper Manning, would not be declaring for the draft after his redshirt sophomore season. But Arch says maybe not so fast. He's taking it day by day right now. So, what's the real story with Arch's draft timeline? Was Grandpa just talking too soon?
It is interesting, and, I think everybody just assumes that Uncle Peyton and Uncle Eli both went to college for 4 years and essentially
Mm-hmm.
quarterbacked the entirety of their careers, that would probably be the plan. Maybe that's the Manning family plan. Now, there's no reason for Arch to commit to anything one way or the other. And the first things first, if Arch were to say one way or the other what his future plans are, he plays at the University of Texas. Hey, you worry about 2025. It's football in Texas. Nobody wants him focusing on anything else but Ohio State. That is where the focus should be. We have talked about this, and I don't know if it's one of those things that it's going to be absolutely crystal clear, cut and dry as far as what Arch Manning, ultimately decides. We do have to keep in mind that Arch Manning has thrown less than 100 career passes in college. So this season is absolutely paramount, obviously,
Yeah.
before we even get into those conversations, because we've talked about Anthony Richardson in videos. Let's see, Trey Lance was another one. There was Mitch Trubisky a few years. There are guys who have gone and declared for the NFL draft without necessarily having what used to be that Bill Parcells, you play 3 years, you must be a captain, you got, and there's guys who are not even coming close to playing a lot of college football. And so it makes for a really difficult evaluation where, hey, we like everything that we saw, but you know what? We can't go back 2 and 3 years and say, all right, well, where was his weaknesses as a sophomore? All right, let's go put on the tape as a senior. Are those weaknesses still there? Did he find a way to overcome those weaknesses? So there isn't really a lot of tape on Arch to this point. He is going to play a monster schedule this year. That
Yeah.
certainly could benefit whether or not people feel he will be ready. And it's all certainly going to start off, in the shoe against Ohio State and the Big Ten. You're dumb. That game should be at 8 o'clock. It should not be at noon. But that's another story, certainly for another day. And what we also have mentioned is there might be some desirable destinations that could certainly tip the hand here. The legacy of the Manning family, the location where they've been.
Yeah.
What if the New Orleans Saints ended up with the number one selection? That really changes things because he's not basically just coming in as a quarterback. He is, I mean, that the amount of equity that would jump in to the New Orleans Saints organization
Mhm.
if, the golden child of the Manning brand now is going to be their quarterback. That is a money absolute maker for that franchise. There is a lot of belief, and I don't know how much I put into it, is that with Jimmy Haslam's ties to that area, that the Cleveland Browns could be a destination for Arch Manning. Again,
Mm.
that one I necessarily believe. But if Arch goes out and he has, a really, really good year, you know, he'll probably either way end up going, could go top five in 26 or go top five in
Mhm.
2027. NIL is certainly a factor here. Arch Manning is one of the highest grossing NIL athletes in all of college football.
Yeah.
You would assume with a really good year this year, that money would probably even go up more in, if he were to stay one more year. So there's a lot of ways to look at this, certainly talent wise,
Mhm.
certainly financial. And there is one, and I've had some people bring this up and they're like, are they going to let this even be his decision? And that's where, I mean, he's got the greatest people in the world to lean on and get advice from. You know, one uncle, two Super Bowls, the other uncle, two Super Bowls.
Mhm.
Grandpa was an absolute, unit and a legacy in his day on one of the poorest franchises ever, would have been a much more successful player if he was on another team. So there are just so many factors here. And of course, we've gotten to this era over the last couple of years, and we did it 2 years ago with Bryce James, and we
Mhm.
certainly just went through it with
Bryce Young.
Shador Sanders, where the legacy of superstars and how this all goes for them, which I guarantee it'll probably not go that way for Arch Manning.
Mhm.
Different story again for another different day. But by far one of the most polarizing names in all of college football this year, and certainly a huge, huge contender to
Mhm.
possibly be one of the top players available come April of 2026.
That's why this is so interesting because there's the NFL factor of it and then the college football factors of it. Like, what if this, you said it, the Saints do feel like such a perfect fit for him, depending on how the NFL season shakes out. What if they do have that number one pick? But then what, we don't know how his college season's going to go. What if they do beat Ohio State? Then how can you walk away from that situation? Like, what are some of the biggest factors you think are coming into play here for this decision? Do we just need to see how it shakes out and then we'll have a better
I think
idea?
a lot of it honestly probably is gonna come down to how he statistically plays.
Okay.
If he goes out and he has a completion percentage that is, flirting with 70%,
Hmm.
he's probably gonna throw for well over 4,000 yards, touchdown to interception ratio. When you get to the tape, where are the passes? Is he hitting the 18 to 20 yard, deep out?
Yeah.
All of those things that he can do to improve himself because the name is the name. But they're legitimately, it's okay to have questions about his game, and the questions of his game are, I just have not seen enough. He would be clarified right now as an incomplete. There has just not